Good evening and welcome to the Sandwich Finance Committee meeting. Today is Tuesday, June 25th, 2024 at 6 p.m. I call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting is being recorded by Sandwich TV, and it's live and is also recorded for your viewing pleasure later on. So we have first review and approval of minutes, and we have 3 different dates. Has everybody had a chance to look them over and peruse? Let's start with March 12th. Do I have a motion? Okay, motion by Crystal. Second by Kevin. Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any abstentions? So abstain by Ed. Otherwise, it's 501. And March 29th. Okay, motion by Crystal. Second by Kevin. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. 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 Any abstentions? Nays? Okay, unanimous 6-0. And March 26th, motion by Crystal, second by Jackie. Sorry, Ed. And any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any abstains? Any noes? It's unanimous 6-0. Thank you. That is done. Correspondence, statements, and announcements. Does anyone have anything? I do not. Okay, town manager report. Bud.
Thought I'd just give you an update on a few bigger picture items, and then a couple of projects I thought you'd be interested in, and then Nancy asked me to touch on a few other topics. So probably first and foremost for all of us is the FY25 state budget. So it's gone through the House and the Senate. It's still at the conference committee. They haven't taken a vote yet to try to resolve those differences. So based on the latest information we got from the Senate, we're still in good shape in terms of being well within our estimates that we voted in May at town meeting. I would say some of the more interesting things, and they've been slight changes. It seems like the charter tuition assessments and public school tuition assessments are going to drop a little bit instead of go up, so that's in our favor. And then this next one, we can't put our finger on, but it looks like our charter reimbursements will be cut more than in half, which seems strange because the amount we're paying is virtually the same. It's a hair less is what they're projecting, but that's been almost a little more than cut in half. So, how it all plays out by the end, it's not really anything we control, but hopefully by the end of July, early August, we'll have a better handle on what the final numbers will look like, but we still look like we're in good shape. A couple of other bigger projects have been completed since our last meeting, and so the boardwalk reopened just before Memorial Day, which was nice, and we had a few punch list items that were being worked on, and I think those have all been resolved. So all in all, the project came out really well. If you look at the percentage of change orders that we had to approve for that work, it's minimal, pretty shocking considering how labor intensive the work was. I think it was under 2%. It's pretty great. And then another big thing I know that we were all not worried about, but we were hopeful we'd get done by the end of the fiscal year, and that was the sale of the wing school. So that went through about 3 weeks ago as well. And so about the only anecdotal thing I thought you'd be interested in is you get it so close and you think it's going to be done, and then the volume of emails between, if you think about, especially for the buyer, the attorneys, the different lending institutions, they had money coming from all sorts of places, and it's not an exaggeration. Heather and I were seeing 50 emails a day for about a month, trying to get every T crossed and I dotted, and so it felt really good when that finally got resolved. A couple of bigger picture school wastewater updates I wanted to give. Probably the most substantive ones related to our school efforts. So just as a recap, we knew over time that 3 schools, the middle high school, Oak Ridge, and Forestdale, if we did nothing, would have to be upgraded to tertiary treatment, which at the time when we did our CWRMP in the roughly around 2015 to 18, the thought then was it would be about 10 million per school. So we applied, as I think you knew, for that state revolving fund low interest loan, just to connect Oak Ridge and improve the high school, Oak Ridge to the high school and improve the high school. And the cost for that was estimated to be about 9.2 million, separate from any engineering costs. So as a result of efforts with Dave Mason, our CWRMP coordinator, and our engineering consultants at Wright Pierce, in speaking with the state, they said that they would be willing to entertain waivers for both Oak Ridge and Forestdale, in the sense that for Oak Ridge, the flows are so low compared to what the system was built for. It's outside of a zone of contribution for public water supply, and it doesn't contribute to a nitrogen-sensitive area. So the waiver there is more or less like a long-term one that we have since applied for just within the last week and a half. At Forestdale, they encouraged us to apply for a temporary waiver, again, because the flows were so low. This money needed to put into the system, but it's not the right system we should be on in the long run. So again, the request there would be for a midterm waiver until such time as the larger sewer connection is made. We would then be required to connect Forestdale to a sewer system. So and then at the high school we have to upgrade and address some of the parts of the system that aren't working as well. So those applications have gone in. So it's interesting because we're not going to if it gets approved, we don't have to connect Oak Ridge to the high school. So it was going to be over 9 million. For all 3 schools, we think it'll be around 2 million total. So, I mean, that's a huge savings. So we had to tell the state, we appreciate, we applied for what we thought we would, and they were very, they say this happens very frequently. And they're obviously happy if we can get a cheaper solution. So where that sits right now is the waivers have gone in for the Oak Ridge and Forestdale. The school department's submitting some flow data just to show what the actuals have been. And then once they review it, we expect that we might hear as soon as a month or 2 before the summer's out whether or not those have been approved. And then in the meantime, we're starting work on what we need to do with the high school. The other nice part about all that is, remember, we got just under $850,000 from the county ARPA funds to improve the school wastewater issues. So we haven't spent any of that money yet, but we will once we get these waivers, because there will be physical things we'll have to do even at those 2 schools to separate the system from what's there now and then convert it to what we have to. Not a huge cost, but something we have to do. And most of that expense will go towards the high school. So in a sense, from a big picture, it's a big savings. It's still not putting pipe in the ground, but it's addressing a problem that we have, so that's good.
But just a question on if the waivers are not approved, then do we have to restart the process on the loan application?
We might, but the timing of all that, it would be easy to resubmit
Okay.
For this August, and I think we'd be fine.
And then the plan for the 2 million, if we did get all the waivers, would be to use the 850.
850
And,
plus the money we just approved at town meeting, we should be able to pay for those in cash and not have to borrow any money. So that's good. And then probably on the non-physical improvement front, if you remember, the town meeting approved a special act for a number of wastewater efforts in November of 22. So those were submitted, more or less buried in a committee at the state level, have finally been referred out without any negative comments from the committee. So now it's going through the legislative process, which it's fair to say we don't understand all the inner workings, but we understand it's been kicked out of a smaller committee to the Ways and Means Committee, and then hopefully we'll be able to get approval on that shortly. What shortly means, I know Senator Moran refiled some of the language in hopes that it could be resolved before she left the Senate at the end of this calendar year, roughly. So hopefully that's working through. There's really not much controversial there, except what we tried to do, whereas if we do a connection at the base and we cross base boundary, that would be eligible for the low interest SRF help, as opposed to just having to pay for that on our own. So we'll see how that goes. But it was positive that the committee that it was assigned to didn't have any concerns when they referred it out and they recommended it. So that's good. And then just a couple of really quick ones. Nancy had mentioned to me, maybe touch on a few things in terms of the downtown area and a more permanent restroom that would be open year round. Our plan is when we do the sewering of the downtown area to redo the facilities across the street, which are open a good chunk of the year, but not year round, but to upgrade those and also making them easier to clean and maintain and connect them to the sewer line. And that's our goal. When that happens, like I can't tell you exactly when that would be, but hopefully in the next 10 years, this time of year it gets cleaned every day. We have staff there that goes in every morning and it's closed, I think roughly, Brian would know, roughly from, I think, Columbus Day through the spring, a little bit later. Yeah, so the end of October.
So that seems like an exceptionally long time to wait. What is it that has to happen? Is it on a septic now?
It's on a septic system now. It's working fine. I think it's working. We haven't had any issues with it. Get it pumped periodically. I don't know just how much we want to spend the money because in case bigger work has to be done as part of the sewer system, I think that's what the plan has always been.
It's just that we're asking these people to come spend money in our town and there's no restroom. They have to go to private businesses and it just doesn't seem right. What is it that has to happen to keep it open year round? Is there like insulation?
I think it's more winterizing the facility. I know the library's open at least Tuesday through Saturday, but not on Sunday and Monday.
Right. I've had some requests, and through the garden club, we've been beautifying the grounds around that area for years, and it's just always seemed wrong that it's not open year round. So is there a snowball's chance of anything happening?
I mean,
the sewer is so far away.
Yeah, I'd have to check. I don't know. It hasn't been on like our top of our list for some of our planning efforts, but I can look at that.
Okay.
And then I know you'd mentioned the Couture Road crosswalks, so there's been some feedback from the public about trying to improve the signage at the crosswalks. There's 3 crosswalks on Catuit Road from the connection with Route 130 to roughly about where Lambert's is in that stretch. So I know just in speaking with DPW, they're working on some newer signage that will go in hopefully over the next month. The police department applied for a grant last week for traffic safety and pedestrian safety issues. Those grants were due July 1st, so hopefully after July 1st we'll get word on that. If you've been out in that area, there's an electronic speed limit sign that if you're driving at or around the speed limit, it doesn't flash, but if you're going above, I think 5 miles an hour above what it says, it flashes pretty vigorously. So we have 3 locations in town that are set up for that type of system to be mounted on. And so the traffic officer with the department moves it to different places. Most of the time it's on Catuit. So what they did is they applied in the grant for 2 more of those signs so that the 3 locations it would be permanent. And so we're looking at that. But just in general, there have been quite a few pedestrian improvements over the years in terms of like what we're trying to do on Service Road with that shared use path, extending some sidewalks on Quaker Meeting House. And when the signal project is done at 130 and Quaker Meeting House, there's going to be pedestrian activated signals, I think all 3 ways where you can cross that intersection. Something like that you really have to do when you rip up the road. So our next big intersection after that one that's going on now is Quaker Meeting House and Catuit. Can't say definitively when that would take place depending on the cost, but hopefully if not next year, the year after. But if you think about it, we're not like adding lanes there. We're not having to address big drainage issues. So I think, one of the things that will definitely be part of it is bigger pedestrian activated crosswalks at the intersection itself. And then we did get that, a pretty significant grant. I thought it was at least for $25,000, the pedestrian activated signal between roughly Stop and Shop heading towards the skate park. But that's the type of thing that we'd like to beef up for the intersection itself. And there's other parts of town as well. I just happened to have a public safety DPW meeting this morning, and the two chiefs mentioned a couple of other areas that they want to look at, possibly for those type of electronic signs for speed limits. So they're trying to do a little bit of analysis to look at their data on where either people have been pulled over the most or where they feel they've seen in the field where some of those areas are. So we'll be doing some improvements pretty quickly, and others will take longer.
So do any of the improvements include paint on the streets? I've seen a lot of.
Yeah, the
posts about
crosswalks.
the Abbey Road, the big giant, and
Yeah,
those are quite visible.
I know, as you'd expect, like DPW and engineering likes consistency, and so I think that's one of the things they'll look at. I know the federal signage requirements change pretty regularly. It used to be like a more greenish, brighter sign, and now it's more yellow-green, but they're going to look at all that before they put in signage. And I think my understanding was the crosswalks there were repainted within the last few months, but not like the last week or anything.
Is any of this a funding issue? Do we need to move any money
I
around?
think those, from what I've been told, those electronic signs are about $5,000 a piece. So that was part of that grant request for 2 more. I think if the department identifies, if the 3 departments combined identify some other areas where something like that should go, we try to find existing funds to do some of that work. The signs themselves aren't that expensive.
But the
Yeah.
pedestrian activated sign that's near the skate park, you said we had a $25,000 grant for
I
that.
thought that's what it was, but I know our change order, because the general contractor that built the Cal installed those. I know the change order was for much more than that because it included installation, the slopes up to it, not just the hard,
It
equipment.
was done after the Cal, right? Or around the
They
same-
did that as the general contractor installed those, but it was during the Cal construction or near the end of it.
So the cost to do 3 on Katuitt would be somewhere in,
Yeah, pedestrian activated would be pretty expensive. I think right now we're going to focus on some quicker signage.
okay.
So I'm not sure if this is something that you would know off the top of your head, or if this is more of a DPW thing. So the paving and everything that's going on right now with 130 and Quaker
Yep.
Meeting House, a lot of people have been wondering why that's done during the day, not overnight. Like Mashpee did 151, and they were done a lot quicker than this project. And I just overheard that an overtime budget was the issue.
It
So I
wouldn't-
don't know if
Yeah, I
it's
don't.
something that we could speak to, or if that is something that is true or has been heard.
I hadn't heard that one before. I know 151, I think, is a state road, so that was probably state work where that intersection's a town project, although we're trying to combine the state-funded paving with our work.
Yep.
I did hear that as long as the weather holds out, the paving should be done by the end of the day on Thursday, if not, definitely on Friday. So I think it's almost done.
Yeah, I just didn't know if that was something that was, accurate, being
Yeah.
an overtime issue with,
I know we've had a hard
Town.
time getting details,
yeah.
police details for the job. And the flagmen, for lack of a better word, flag people haven't worked as well. So we're trying to make sure that there's police on some of those detours and things to help.
Okay, yeah, just stuff that I've heard that I was just kind of wondering. Thanks.
Do we have any updates on how the school projects are doing?
No, I don't. Yeah.
It might be too early. I'm
Yeah.
guessing they're going to be doing work over the summer.
Yeah, that's what I believe. Yeah.
Any more questions for Bud? Okay, thank you. That brings us to reorganization. The most time that a person can serve as chair is 2 years, and my term is up. So we need to reorganize, and I put it on the agenda just before the change to the new fiscal year because I don't know when we're going to be meeting next, and we need to have new leadership in place. So that being said, we need to have a new chair. So I'm going to open up the floor to for nominations for a chair, and I'm going to start by nominating Ed Colby, if you will serve. Okay. Are there any other nominations? Any discussion? Okay, then we need a motion. Okay, motion by Kevin, second by Crystal, and everybody else. Okay. Okay, then I guess there's no more discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, congratulations, you are it, 6-0. And now we turn the meeting over to you.
Well, thank
for
you.
For Vice Chair.
Since I will become chair, we now need a vice chair. So I would take nominations from the floor for anyone to be vice chair. And I would nominate Crystal Smith to take that on.
I'll second that.
Any other nominations? Or okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Any noes or abstentions? No. Unanimous. So thank you, Crystal. Thank you, Nancy, for your 2 years of service. Much appreciated. As a member of the committee for a number of years, it's been great to sit beside you and work beside you. So thank you very much for that. I look forward to working with Bud and Bill and Heather as we go through the next fiscal year. And as well, we'll be working to establish the right, solid, collaborative relationships with our Board of Selectmen. Our new chair for the new fiscal year is with us tonight, Charlie. Thank you. As well as the chair of the school committee and Dr. Marashik. I'll work to establish strong relationships with them so that we can have a active and productive finance committee going forward. So thank you for the trust in the committee members. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ed, and serving next to Ed, he's been most helpful. He's very detailed, and we're certainly in good hands, and I appreciate all the help in looking through all these minutes that we had to go through. When I see all the questions that we had, you know, we're a diverse group, and we really get into the nitty-gritty, but I think it's been all very respectful. So thank you for everyone for supporting us, and we will support you. So thanks to everyone.
Thank you. So moving on with our agenda, the next item we have is to move through the fiscal 24 reserve fund transfer, and Bill Jennings is going to take us through that.
Sure. Thank you, Ed. So as I guess it's kind of becoming an annual custom, so we're here for the reserve fund transfer. Just for maybe those who are new on the committee, the reserve fund transfer is kind of standard municipal financial practice here in the state. There's probably numerous finance committees across the state that are doing something similar that you're doing tonight. We are here specifically in regards to the fire department budget. So right now, the original budget for the fire department for fiscal 24 was just over $5.8 million. As of today, we are in a negative balance of $57,000, $57,626.26. I'm sorry, let me just step back 1 minute. The reason this wasn't in your pack is payroll is this Thursday. And so we wanted to provide the most up-to-date information we could for you. So we actually posted payroll yesterday afternoon. So Caroline Burke, who's our town accountant, who's joined us tonight, Caroline and I met yesterday so we could kind of put this together really to get you the most up-to-date information. By the time before the packet went out on Friday, we simply just didn't have Thursday's payroll information available yet. So that's why I handed you the memo that you have tonight. So what's a little different is their next payroll in July will be what we kind of refer to as a split payroll, because it'll be the first week of June and the last week of June and the first week of July. So it's split in between 2 fiscal years. So we still have payroll that we need to pay out for the fire department, and we're kind of projecting that at a little over $131,000. So which we're projecting a year-end balance currently for the fire department of negative $189,000. So we're here tonight seeking a reserve fund transfer in the amount of $215,000. I'll explain to you why it's not exactly $189,000. We like to leave a little room for cushion. God forbid something happens this week. It's better to just leave enough in there. Even if let's say we left that extra money in the reserve fund, it would still clear to free cash. If we don't use this in the fire department, it will still clear to free cash. It will go to the same exact place. So from like just a purely logistical standpoint, whether this money remains in the reserve fund or the fire department overtime budget at the end of the year and is not used, it's going to wind up in the same exact place. What really drove the overtime issues for the fire department, as many of you on this committee know, this has been a long-standing issue with the fire department that we are making inroads on. You remember that this winter we're actually putting in an additional $150,000 into the FY25 budget to help offset these issues. The fire department had some leave issues that were injury related. Some were on the job injuries, some were not on the job injuries. At one point this spring, 28% of the fire department was on leave. This created significant overtime issues for the fire department this spring. We have a couple of those that will most likely lead to medical retirements. So they've been dealing with, not only just their normal overtime issues, but they've had some leave issues as well. So again, tonight we're here requesting $215,000 of reserve fund transfer into the fire department budget. And I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Questions for Bill amongst anybody? Nancy?
Yeah, because we had these minutes to look through, just kind of reminded, we talked last year about adding more money, and last year we allocated $100,000,
Yep.
knowing that it wasn't going to be that much, and we used something like 58.
Correct.
I know you're talking about a lot of people on leave.
Yep.
Is that, that seems to be happening every year, that there's always something extraordinary that causes it to go up, and this is significant even from last year.
Correct. I know that the fire department, the fire chief has, done a lot to try to help alleviate these expenses. But you're correct. A lot of times these are just simply unanticipated events that are outside of their control that unfortunately hits the personnel budget of the department. As you know, we did the study a couple years ago. I know the chief has implemented a lot of those actions from that plan, and we have seen some results, but we're not where we need to be yet. Ideally, hopefully one day we will get there. I think we've got some budget ideas like, as I build the budget in September, October, we're going to take a look at some different ways of, trying to look at overtime. And I'm talking about FY26. It's a little different as finance director. You kind of work almost in the future, So really in September, October, I'll be focusing on FY26. And we have some ideas of how we want to try to help with the overtime. But you're absolutely correct. This has been it's been a number of years now where we've needed to fund the fire department, and unfortunately that's the case for this year as well.
Bill, what staffing level are we at with the fire department? Are we fully staffed or open positions through the past year?
Yeah, I think as Bill had mentioned, there's a couple people out on long-term leave that we don't think will be back. And so they're working with the Human Resource Department about what sort of retirement they're looking at. There's a couple of different ways, like a normal retirement if you're retired without any medical issues. There's a accidental disability retirement, which would be a job-related injury. It's usually a higher percentage. And then if it's a outside of work medical injury, that's a third different type. And we have examples of each that we're dealing with. I only know this, again, because of our staff meeting this morning. I believe there's 3 people coming on board around July 1st, either replacing people who had retired, but remember they have to go to the fire academy. And then because of one of the longer term injuries, we're actually looking at hiring a temporary person that will work 40 hours a week plus, but is a temporary appointment until we figure out what's happening with one of those people going out to try to hold down some costs.
Because on those two long-term leaves,
Yeah.
you can't hire against them.
You shouldn't until they're gone, until you know they're gone. And,
Yeah.
and if it's an accidental retirement, meaning something that happened on the job, there's a longer process that the retirement board goes through and then the state retirement board goes through. It's like a two hurdles you have to get over, and it can take 6 to 8 months easily.
And then what's the length of time from a hire to
It depends. We've been
bringing them on board?
We've been trying to attract people who've already been through the academy.
Okay.
Sometimes we've been successful with it, and sometimes we don't. I believe the fire academy. I know better on the police. I think the fire is about 4 months long, roughly, and then once they come back, they sort of have local training before they're counted towards shift strength.
in the three that are coming on board, how long have those positions
Yeah.
been vacant? That
Our HR director would know right off the top of her head, but
Okay.
I don't know that.
Yeah, I just wonder if we're, part of the view, and maybe this is one of the items on, Bill, your list, is to look at, strategic hiring, in terms of planning for, either vacancies we know about or, so that we don't get in a position of having gaps where in staffing levels that we've approved, that then we have to use overtime to fill.
Absolutely. And one of the things, I work with the fire chief on is, and, Bud mentioned this temporary employees, we're constantly looking for solutions to try to help alleviate expenses, and, I think our fire chief is extremely open to ideas and willing to work with us. I think he's a very forward thinker, outside the box thinker, and, and he always has Sandwich's best interest at the forefront. And so we're constantly looking at solutions to help solve this problem. Absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions from anybody? We're good? All right, so can we have a motion to move forward with the fiscal 24 reserve fund transfer?
Motion.
Motion from Crystal. Second? Second from Nancy. All in favor? Aye. Okay, unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have to say I'm proud of all those departments where we didn't have to do this. And I know there've been times when we've had like little ones go over by, in the scheme of things, insignificant amounts, but so it's good that we've only had one.
Excellent. So during the budget planning process and budget approval process for fiscal 25, we had a number of discussions around facilities and the maintenance of the various facilities throughout town. And some of us addressed some of the concerns around current budget levels for maintenance. Specifically, I brought that up a couple times over the past years, and Bud thought it would be a great idea if we would have our facilities director, Brian Schlegel, come before us tonight to just give us an overview of the opportunities and challenges that he sees, and also to give us some forward look. So, Brian, welcome. And Heather's going to join.
It's okay, I'll just introduce the topic and introduce Brian to all of you. First of all, what you don't have here is one of the knowledge that Brian's a really outstanding facilities director. He manages a great team of professional staff and custodians, and does a really phenomenal job sort of managing the day-to-day operations of our buildings. In fact, this evening, as we were sitting here, he opened up his computer and adjusted the HVAC for us so it would be a little cooler. So he really is always thinking about how he can make life more comfortable and sustain the buildings. And one of the things I was most impressed by when I first met him, which I've told him, but he may not remember, are the systems that he has in place. He really came in and took a look at the way that we both maintain and do some of the basic custodial functions, which he really has, I think, transformed the way that we do that. And he has great systems, which a lot of facilities directors talk about doing, but he really did it. here in our buildings, and you can see the consistency among the way the staff handle buildings, as well as the products and that kind of thing. So I just wanted to recognize that this is just one part. What you'll hear about tonight is just one part of the job that he does for us. And we've worked together for the last couple of months, kind of pulling together some information. I'll just walk through what you have before you, and I won't steal any of the thunder in terms of what the numbers look like. But we did take a look at what we think, based on Brian's practical experience working with both his operating budget and his capital budget, which, as you know, is $150,000 every year when we have it. Occasionally, we'll be able to inject a little bit more into the capital plan based on some specific needs, but generally, it's that 150. And like the Public Works Department, he balances between the operating budget and the capital budget, and sometimes he'll save up those capital budgets over a few years when a big project needs to be done, and he'll just look at me and say, "Not this year, Heather." And so we wait for it to come. So we asked him to document generally some of the work that has been done. In fact, this is almost all the work that's been done that we consider capital work in all of the buildings. And I hope Brian kind of hit some of the highlights on some of those for you. In addition, we asked him to take a closer look out over the next 5 to 10 years about what he sees those needs being. So you also have a 10-year outlook on capital, which looks very similar to what you saw in your capital plan last year with, I think, a few more. We're really pushing him to make sure he captures everything in here. And then lastly, we just wanted to have you get a sense of the work order system. We have a software program that he uses, and I believe the school department uses the same one for documenting the work that they do. And it does communicate back to department heads when work is in progress or what the status is. And it's something that will continue to enhance the way we use it over time. But just gives you an idea that we are, they are on a daily basis working to ensure that they document the work that we're doing in our buildings. So I just want to turn it over to Brian, who has really tens of years of experience in facilities maintenance, and we're lucky to have his really highly detailed professional experience.
Well, thank you very much, Heather. I appreciate that. That's great. Thank you. As you can see, we put together a comprehensive 10-year capital plan. We tried to break it out so that we didn't overload too much on the front end of certain fiscal years. So what we did is we looked at the needs of the facilities at all of our, basically throughout town. And myself and my maintenance staff would look at each structure, see what the needs were, try to break that down and put it into the capital plan for the town so that we could, again, get a plan together that isn't so overwhelming for the taxpayers and for the townspeople, but also that would get the facilities back to where they have to be. And then that way, it'd be a lot easier for us in the town to upkeep those facilities once we get them to where they are. We tried our best to, again, capture everything that we could in here. We did a lot of research for this. We do have some things like the library. I know it's a separate facility, but we do work with the library director just to make sure that we can encompass everything for them also, because the library director doesn't have a facilities director. So we work with the library, we work with Sandwich Hollows, and we work with the marina as needed to assist everybody. But as you can see here, again, what we tried to do is take the needs of each area and just try to break them out as best we could with what we could foresee with, the structural issues, roofing, siding, windows, just to try to get the things back up into the condition that they should be. I'm not sure if you have any questions on the capital plan. It is quite sizable overall.
You can maybe walk through it and start,
Sure.
just a general overview, and without getting into all the details, but you can see we start with, I hope I'm on page 1, Oakcrest Cove, which is, if you haven't been up there for a while, it's a fairly comprehensive facility with the lodge, the main building, as well as all the camp structures. So there's always continuous upgrade that needs to happen out there, and you can see that Brian's taken a really close look, and basically the entire first page is really focused on that particular facility, and there are multiple buildings involved in that and multiple systems and improvements. So we took the time to really investigate the needs of all of those, from the Hamilton Hall to the cabins on the pond, which are the lower level down by Peters Pond, the camp cabins, which we do use for the Superfund program. There's also some significant roadways and parking areas down there. These are obviously things we could do to collaborate with the Public Works Department, but the materials costs would still be borne by the Facilities Department. And then there's, I'm moving down pretty quickly here, the Oakcrest Cove Hamilton Hall, the Oakcrest Cove IT house, where we house a lot of our IT equipment, and our IT department still does work part of the time out of there. And then you move on to the next page. Again, it's sort of interesting to think about the types and variety of facilities that we have and the types of demands there are on the town and the department. The grist mill and the Hoxie House, they're two museum-quality historic structures that demand specialty care, specialty services. We are a member of SNILA, right? Which is that the small mill, SMILA, maybe it's SMILA. But
Yes.
We are, we have to be members of historic associations to maintain these buildings in the way that they are needed to for, to meet the historical accuracy of the performance of those buildings. And then you move right down to the Sandwich Hollows Golf Course, which again is another large facility. And again, Bud always reminds us that our buildings, while they're large to us, in relation to the school buildings, these are like very large homes. They are big buildings, but they don't have the types of systems, the boilers, the complexity of the systems that those other buildings have on the school side. Again, so back to the hollows, there's quite a bit of work that needs to be forecast there. It's functioning. There are needs, but we know over time we'll need to invest in that building. 100 Route 6A, again, we were benefited from a wonderful, thank you, town finance committee, renovation of that building. But we didn't replace everything. The entire HVAC system was not replaced. It was improved. We didn't replace windows. So it really is important to recognize that over time, those will be needs that that building will have. Again, not emergencies, but important to forecast those. Again, a jump in anytime, Brian, too. On the fire stations, of course, so Station 1, the main station, Fire Station 2, and Station 3. Sorry, Station 3 is the headquarters.
Yes.
Station 1's downtown, Station 2 is East Sandwich. So you see that those all, need consistent attention to make sure that they're maintained. They're 24-hour buildings that serve as accommodations for our staff there. The Sand Hill School, again, really wonderful place, heavily used by both our committees and the public. That needs some attention. Again, looks way out in fiscal 30, which is scary because that's now only 6 years out in our planning forecast. The library, again, we have responsibility for maintaining that building. Again, the same thing there. There was a awesome renovation of that building, but there are still, we didn't touch every surface and every piece of equipment there, and there are needs that will continue in that building, and it's also an historic building that supports our archive, so that's an important building to maintain, all sorts of qualities. I think that's it for like your long-term list. And then I won't do the same thing with this, multi-page document, but Brian and we work with Frank McDonald, who's our business analyst in the facilities department, and he has a great, record of what we've done, and they did a terrific job outlining what we have accomplished, and this is only in the last 5 years. Everything on this list is from 2019 to the present, and then what we just went through is the forecast down the road. You want to talk about, Brian, what you think your needs are and your operating budget and your capital budget, and what would make life?
Well, so an increase in the operating budget would be highly beneficial for the town, because what's happening is with all these new facilities on board, we have service contracts and things of that nature that need to be addressed. So what we're looking at is, I know that they had bumped it up to $170,000, and as we go through and we start to get the service contracts in just to prepare for future maintenance issues and maintenance, just general service of the buildings, we're looking at around $230,000 for an annual budget to get us through just for our basic functions. And that would be, that's not including utilities, that would be all of the HVAC systems, fire alarm systems, elevators that we have, all of the, at the PD we have a UPS system, that has to be on a service contract, all of our generators, things of that. These are all just basic infrastructure things that we'd like to take care of. And again, with the newer facilities and a bigger facility like at Escal, there's an increase in custodial costs with the materials, just for cleaning purposes. The generals, like the toilet tissue and the hand towels and things like that. It's kind of funny how it catches up on you so quickly, because we went from an 8,000 square foot building to a 27,000 square foot building that's getting a lot more use. And also with the increase in the use of Oakcrest Cove, with all the functions they have, it all impacts the general budget through custodial supplies and things of that nature. And then just general maintenance for us. So, and again, with the new buildings, we have an increase in the filters and things of that nature for the HVAC equipment that they didn't have in the past, or we had minimal expenses on those. But now with the new green buildings and all the new energy recovery units they have, filters are close to $15,000 a year just for the small district that we have, or the few buildings that we have. So when I sat down and calculated what our needs would be, it was close to $230,000 for our general budget. With the capital, we'd be happy with whatever we got, but it's nice to just to be able to get in and then take care of all these issues that have been kind of lingering out there for years. We do as much as we can in-house with our staff. A lot of times we'll buy materials and have contractors install it to save the town money. But at some point, we're getting to the point where we can't keep up with it without investing in the infrastructure for it. So,
Brian, did you say that the budget estimate would be 230,000?
Yes.
So not 30,000, bringing it to 200.
so right now we have 170. I mean, we can incrementally increase it
It
just.
needs
so
to
that-
go up by 60.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And then that would take care of a lot of the general items. What happens sometimes is we may have to tap into a capital budget. Some expenses are 5,000 or more that we would normally take out of our general budget. But if we get to a point where our general budget's diminished, we have to tap into the capital. And then that kind of sets us back on some of the capital issues.
Kevin, did you have a question?
Yeah, and I was going to ask start with that one, because your memo does say increase by 30,000 to 200
Yes.
instead of 60,000 to 230. The second question I had, though, was really with the capital.
Yes.
I like that you broke it down. You identified what you wanted to spend things on. Are you looking for all the things you've identified and an additional 300?
On the capital?
Yes.
No.
Okay, so, because typically we give you 150,000
Correct.
without you having to say anything.
Correct.
So if you wanted to increase that 150 to 300, and that would handle all of, or most of the things on your list?
Yes, because I know some of it seems front-loaded on the list, but we would be able to break that out. We'd do what we could with the 300 every year, and hopefully that would address a lot of the issues that we have, and then,
Yeah. I do like having you identify what they are,
yes.
which is awesome. But I was worried that we were going to take all of these brand-new things on the list and increase it from 150 to 300.
Heather?
The only sort of asterisk I would put on is this building.
Yes.
Oh, yes, this one
This
is,
is totally
See that-
separate,
that-
yeah.
that sort of
the
blows budget
albatross is
across
still
the-
there.
Yeah.
The other thing that it just surprised me when I read your report, it's all of our other departments, fire department, police department, the golf course, they have their own budgets, but they don't take care of their own building, and that falls on you.
Facilities, correct. We take care of the utilities, all the general maintenance in the buildings.
And I always thought that fire department budget included take care of their building, and I didn't realize you were doing that much more.
Yes. Yeah, we take care of all of the public facilities. And then the Town Neck Beach, the comfort stations, Town Neck Beach trailers and things like that, we also maintain.
And how does that work with the couple of departments that have enterprise funds?
Like Hollow.
Yeah, the Hollows or the Marina.
Yeah, we don't have, correct me if I'm wrong, we don't have dedicated custodial staff for Sandwich Hollows. They do most of that in-house with their people. The Marina has some money in its budget where they pay a portion of one of the custodial staff in Brian's budget, so that comes a transfer internally to facilities. I'm missing one. Oh, the transfer station really doesn't,
Right.
they clean the transfer station. We don't do it for
Okay.
them.
No, because I was
There are-
looking,
there are-
Yeah.
because you also had in here for Sandwich Hollows improvements.
So what would
So
happen?
under their capital request?
Well, we assist them. So what I do is I work with John to identify their capital needs for them and work with them to get contractors in and things of that nature. Just because that's what I was hired to do. So we work with all of the department heads. Even if it doesn't come out of our budget directly, we do work with them to assist them.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
If I can add one thing, so if you remember this past fall, the marina had, I think it was a $25,000 capital item for, I think it was a sewer pump or a
The pipe.
sewer pipe, excuse me. So I think if there's a large purchase that the marina, the golf, can do, that they certainly make that purchase, just like marina did there.
Okay.
I think the only custodian on the town side that is not in facilities is the library has a full-time custodian at their building in their budget.
Yes.
But we assist when that person's on vacation and work very closely with the director on any building needs.
Okay.
Thanks for the team for pulling all this together. And one of the things that hit me was it looks to be, over the past 5 years, quite an investment made in Oak Crest. And it still looks like there needs to be
Yes.
even a more significant investment at Oak Crest. So are we headed in the right direction?
We are.
Or have we spent money that we're kind of re-spending? How are we looking at Oak Crest, in terms of maybe a longer-term view of, we've said that we've attacked many of our older facilities and projects through, all the work that's been done over the past several years. But now it's hitting me like, is Oak Crest what's next in terms of needing a much larger investment?
I'll let Brian speak about the quality of the main recreation building, which I think is in fairly good shape. There's some cosmetic work that definitely needs to happen on the interior, but Brian and those that preceded him have done a really good job maintaining the structural integrity of that main service building. The cabins, and I get the name wrong, Hamilton Hall, which is a smaller building, those are used fairly routinely programmatically, and the rec department relies on both the cabins that are seasonal accommodations and really do have some, running water and that type of thing down by the pond. But the other cabins they use as, safe shade locations for their summer camp program. So maintaining those, making sure that they're ADA compliant, that they're structurally sound. That work, we've talked about whether we should reduce the number of cabins out there, and have really had the discussion that they are part of the program. Whereas another, clearly we're open-minded to that discussion, but that they do rely on it for the programming that they have out there. And they're outdoor cabins that haven't had a lot of attention, and Brian's really just begun the process of attending to them.
And it's a large area, it's an 83-acre complex, and the facilities are worth the investment, at least in my opinion. They do get used quite often. The lodge gets used all the time. It seems like a lot of money, but over time, we're looking at these buildings, once we're done, these buildings will last 50-plus years. The cabins, maybe not so much, but those are things that we're investing in for, it's for the programs for the kids. They have a huge turnout for the kids up there. That particular property gets quite a bit of use, especially the lodge. The lodge does get a lot of use. They have all kinds of programs, workout programs and things like that, and they have all kinds of private functions in the building. But in my opinion, yes, it would be worth the investment.
More than what's outlined in the 10-year plan?
Well, no,
Okay.
yes, this plan, and I know you had mentioned that we've already invested money into it, yes. So, yeah, the investment we're putting into it is well worth it for that particular site, at least in my opinion.
Okay. Jackie, looked like you had a question. Okay. Did you get a response to what you needed?
Can I?
Are you sure?
I just,
Go ahead, Bud.
just for like some quick history on Oakcrest. So that was like, if you drive down the driveway heading down towards where the main facility is, where recreation operates out of, the first building that you come to on your left is facilities. So that's where they keep a lot of their equipment,
Yes.
store their vehicles. So there's a lot of that. As you go down further down the hill, up on the right, there's a house. So when Hewlett Packard owned it, they had an employee that lived there year round to help oversee the property and to help run their recreational programs. We have a department that works there. That's not their only location, but that's partially there. And I won't go into all the details, but so it's pretty weird that we have a single family house that gets used by a town department. Then when you get to the bottom of the hill is the beautiful lodge area that gets used constantly for rec. Down to the left, down by the water, I think there's 7 or 8 winterized cabins. So those are a little bit unique. But up on the hill, and I used to know the number off the top of my head, there were 2 separate areas up on the hill. In each area, there was a bathroom facility, mixed, half female, half male, but now mixed. And then there were non-winterized cabins that, when we say cabins, it's literally like, 4 walls, a couple bunks, no heat, there's electricity, but there's no heat. And so it's very minimal. Because there were 2 separate areas, we completely gave up one of those 2 areas probably 5 years after owning Oakcrest and just let those go. So those aren't maintained like the ones up on the hill where the programs are run by recreation.
There's 7 winterized cabins. What do we do with those?
There's programs that are run out of it. Sometimes we have interns from a couple of colleges that work for the summer, and that's where they stay. Brian would know more.
Yeah, they have interns when they hire the lifeguards and things like that. That's one of the bonus features that they have, where they stay in the cabins on the beach so they can actually get staff to work up there. So we do maintain them, and they'll run some of the programs. They run later into the fall. We do winterize them, but when I mean winterize, we'll shut the water off, but there's heat, because if we don't run the heat, then they'll just decay. All the wall board and things like that will decay. So what we do is we'll turn the water off, but we'll go down, we'll maintain them, we'll make sure the heat is on, the electricity is on. We go on weekly, we check them just to make sure there's no rodent infestations or anything like that. But then if there's ever use, we could turn the water back on. If there's ever a need for those cabins for, in addition to what the rec department uses, they're always available for the town.
Okay. Finance committee cabin.
Yep. There you go. And then, can I add one?
Go right ahead, Jackie.
Oh, okay, thanks. Yeah, I just, but you were saying that, there are a couple of groups like the golf course and the library that have their own kind of facilities budget. And I just was wondering, is that sort of a trend that we can get a handle on? Because we do have a professional facilities director with great systems, and it'd be potentially an efficiency thing to have all of them report in.
Yeah, without a doubt, Brian oversees those departments, all of our buildings, in terms of the bigger picture maintenance and upkeep and any bigger projects that are needed. I think because of the hours that they're open in the days of the week, that's why the library, and it's within the library union, that's why there's a custodial position there. And then at the golf course, I just say that the employees up there mostly clean the facility. We don't have a separate group go in to clean. But remember, on that main floor at the golf course, there's a food and beverage operation. They pay to clean that floor. So if you've ever been to the golf course, the pro shop's down below. So we clean that, not the food and beverage people.
So that's not something that we're going to encourage anyone to do, is have their own line items.
No, definitely not. If anything, we've taken their line items. In the library, we purposely haven't, because there's this weird, I shouldn't say weird, the state library commissioners require you to do a standard of effort. And so if we moved all the utility money from the library budget to Brian's, we would fall short of this maintenance of effort or what we were supposed to be doing for the library, and they would penalize us with state aid and reduce it if we moved money from there. So that's one of the few areas where we keep that money separate. And then the enterprise funds are separate as well.
And to Bud's point, like all the utility bills and all that throughout the town are all centralized as well.
Yeah. And is there a coordination with the school facilities? Do you also coordinate with them a little bit, or just is there kind of a?
They're on their own separate
Really?
entity, yes.
Okay.
Crystal?
So Brian, this is a great report. I love it. Congrats on this. I just had one question, because over the 10 years, has any of this been looked at inflation-wise? Because I know that we kind of had a little surprise with the school committee this year with, inflation being so high with this 1 year just, went up. I was just wondering if that was factored in at all.
So what this will do, this is a basic guideline for us to work with, but every year we have to reevaluate with what the costs are and things of that nature. So every year, they may be the same list, but we may have to increase the numbers depending on what the supply costs are and things of that
Right.
nature.
Okay, all right, thank you.
To that point, just on capital, when we've done that 10-year capital plan, which is relatively new in the last 2 years, a lot of those things that we have out there, they're placeholders, where we have like an estimate of money. We may have an amount in there for like FY 26, 27. It's our best guess today what that's going to cost 3 years from now. As we really get closer, especially if that item's going to be included in that upcoming year's fiscal year, that's when we go out and we go get actual quotes and what have you. Especially like when you start going out 10 years, when you see 29, 30, 31, they're essentially placeholders with, what our best guess is that money is at that point in time.
Yeah, because looking at this, I was like, all right, so what is a roof going to cost in 2032? So, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I just want to just make a semantic comment. We call it the capital improvement plan or capital improvement program because it really is a plan or a program. And then every year we come back to you with a capital budget, which is what we've done a lot more digging on, working and getting, more design level estimates or procurement level estimates for you in the budget when we come in each fiscal year.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Heather, you mentioned that we've got Brian's put in great systems and processes and those types of things. It occurred to me when I saw the work order sheets, are we keeping up to date, like with current versions of any systems like the work order system or anything else that we're doing?
Yes, we are. We just signed a 3-year deal with Facilities Dude, as a matter of fact, so that, that's a brand-new system. It was bought by Brightly. They do have some different benefits in there for us, so what we're going to start to use is that for capital planning, too. We put every project now, we're putting everything we do pretty much into that system so that it can be tracked and can be viewed. But yes, and then with the HVAC systems we're updating, we always update with the latest software and things of that nature. So yes, we stay on top of all of that. And that's, some of the things we like to pull out of our general budget, not out of capital, just because, every year the software upgrades for our heating systems. So yes, we do maintain all that.
If we ever need to nudge the folks at Brightly, I know one of the founders,
All right.
the original company, I know it's changed.
Oh, yes, School
Or, but-
Dude, or yes, yeah, School Facility Dude, when it first came out.
Yeah, this is a great tool. It's been around for a while. We have kind of the baseline model. They did try to upsell us this year, and we had some very serious conversations internally about, is the value worth the additional investment? And we decided that the baseline model really meets the needs of our department. Might not meet everyone's needs, but it does work for us. So we took a hard look at that.
And we're always improving on utilizing it too, with adding more information into it that, as we move along and progress.
How does it interface with the 311? It doesn't. We're disappointed with that. I can tell, Heather.
It's a long story, but both tools have been purchased by other providers. And when we looked at 311, yeah, we can do Facilities Dude, and now Facilities Dude is owned by someone else. I said, no, we can't do that. So.
And we're not really open to the public like 311 is. This is more internal, like within the facility. So it's a little different of a system, so.
So how do we, Nancy, I'm sorry. To my right.
Just a couple quick questions. Are we done with the leaks at the 106A?
Oh, yes.
Everything's all plugged?
yeah,
and-
that-
and
it's-
All
yes.
that maintenance, all
Yes.
is fixed? That's great.
Yes, all the water infiltration issues have been
Oh.
rectified, yes.
Okay, so then at the end of, like, say for FY '26, the total is over 2 million. Is that what you're going to ask for? Or is there a formula that you're using, or pick and choose?
I think that includes this building.
Yeah, it's,
25 was the $1.5 million, right?
so most of that is, the town hall, and again, that would be a separate capital article.
Yes.
How we did this year as well. As part of the capital process, we go out, Heather and I really work on that probably in like the October, November timeframe. We meet with every single department head throughout town, find out what they need, what they don't need, can something move back a year, does it have to stay on? And we really fine tune that list in the October, November timeframe to get to an actual capital number. So there's a big difference between what's on the list first and what actually gets to town meeting.
So that's about close to 1 million in FY '26 for here, so we'd probably be looking at give or take 1 million for everything else.
So if you remember how we handled this building this year, we were able to offset a lot of that with sinking funds. We actually had some grant funds as well. We hopefully would be going down that road in the future as well to help offset those expenses.
Thank you.
Yeah, it shows up twice. Yeah, the old town hall actually shows up twice in this, but $1.5 million in fiscal year '25, and then another $1,042,000 further down in fiscal year '25.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
I believe the sheets were being merged just so we could get Brian's on there. So, that was probably just a clerical error.
Yeah, and it looks like it's about 1.4 million for this building again in '26 of that 2 million total.
Go ahead,
And
Mike.
so we recently hired the project manager for this, and we're in the process of hiring the architect. So we'll have a lot harder numbers on this building and for the front of Sandwich Hollows, probably less than a year from now. So that we'll have better numbers on that. And then I just wanted to add quickly, like, I guess what I was most impressed with, and it's hard because like when we sit here and you hear certain statements be made, not by the committee, but usually by members of the public without understanding what goes on, there's this general belief that we don't do anything in any of our buildings. But I mean, when you look at that Word document with all the things that have been done over 5 years, and I mean, it's the epitome of, progressive maintenance and fixing things that are near the end of their natural life and trying to improve them. So I don't know, that's the part that I guess was most impressed with, is just that Word document for 8 or 10 pages that just shows you all the work that's been done at each of these buildings. And I mean, there's some, for lack of a better word, piddly buildings that we have, like the Greenville School, near the old Forestdale Fire Station, that we still maintain, that Brian has had to spend time on, doing things because of its antique nature. So it's good.
Nancy?
Not included in any of this, you can't see, is how creatively you, Brian, have managed some of these expenses and challenges. And I remember doing the tours at 106A and how the cost savings that you don't see what wasn't spent. So that was impressive, and it still is. So thank you.
Thank you. And then we have our general maintenance on top of this list here, so in between this, we perform our general maintenance duties also, so.
And I think we're saying, no, despite all that we get done, there is still more
Yes.
that needs to be done.
Yes.
I mean, that.
Absolutely.
So on that note, my question is, how do we proceed with Brian's kind of recommendations as we pull the budget together for fiscal '26?
Sure. So I start really building the budget in September and October. Generally in September, October, we're trying to put in numbers we hope for, that we would love to see work in there. As you know, the budget is significant. It's over $100 million, and we always can't fit in what we want. So we do make some decisions internally about what we can and what we can't do. every year we try to present the best budget forward that we can. I can tell you every year there's things that we take off the budget that we'd love to have in there, that we simply just can't afford to get in the budget. So this year we're certainly, as we begin the process, we're always mindful of requests, whether it's facilities, whether it's the fire, police, no matter where it is. We try to put that in at first and see what the budget looks like. As you know, if we came back and asked for 13, 14%, we know it's not always feasible. So, unfortunately, we make a lot of cuts. But, we're certainly going to mindful of Brian's request, as I mentioned throughout the capital process, Heather and I, we meet literally with every single department head in town as well as the school. We go through that list and we make cuts there as well. Go ahead, Bob. Sorry.
I would just add with that, I don't even know if I like the name of it anymore, but that modernization and efficiency plan that we talked a lot about over the last year and a half, we have things identified. And next year, we accomplished so much for the year that we're going to start in a week for that fiscal year. I know the select board has said, if there's a way to finish whatever else is on the list in one more year, that would be great. So some of the things that I know are on there are setting aside more money for DPW, just general infrastructure improvements, which that would go a long way. And when I talked about crosswalks earlier, remember that budget was less than $200,000 annually. And then I think collectively we added another, was it 650, 800,000 a couple years ago, and that's made a huge difference. So we're trying to do more with DPW. We're trying to address what Brian identified in his operating budget. Off the top of my head, there's a library position that we've talked about that we think would be very helpful, and a couple of other smaller things. So the grand total of those is quite a bit less than we implemented for the year we're going to start in a week. So hopefully there's a way we can still accomplish those within the funding that we have and still be safe about it. But I know we're going to try to address the needs that Brian, and I know we want to work with the school as well to try to figure out, what should they have more realistically in their annual operating budget, which came up at a lot of the tours that we went on.
And I think it's important to note, when we go through the budget process, so much of what's on our budget is outside of our control. Bud mentioned earlier about, the numbers from the state. We have, retirement assessments, things along those lines. The Upper Cape Tech schools, for all intents and purposes, they give us a number, and that's what we're paying. So a lot of the numbers on our budget are simply outside of our control, and we have to plug those numbers in no matter what. And then we have to make choices with the line items that we do control.
Very good. Last chance for questions or comments. Andrew, Crystal, Jackie, Kevin, Nancy, no? Okay, we're good. Brian, thank you very much for you and the team for pulling all of this together and presenting with us tonight. Heather, thank you for adding your input as well. Much appreciated, and keep up the great work that's been going on. With that, the next item is old business.
I've got one. I don't know if it's old business, new business, or we should have discussed it during reorganization. But Finance Committee has a representative on the Capital Improvement Planning Committee, which I have done for the last number of years. Starting July 1st, you have...
We didn't bring it up on person, you're it.
Well, if you're willing to continue to serve, unless somebody else wants to do that.
Jackie, you don't want to?
Next year, I'll take it.
Okay, I'll do it for one more year.
Very good. Well, thank you, Kevin.
I'll tell you, there's a meeting tomorrow.
Thank you for bringing that up, and thank you for continuing to serve on that committee as well in representing us. Appreciate it. Anybody else for old business or new business at this point now? Anything new? Nothing. Time for a public forum. Anybody want to speak to us this evening? No. Thank you very much. Thank you for attending and being with us, though. And with that, thank you. Thanks for a great meeting. Nancy?
Closing remarks, were you going to talk about the tri-board?
Yes.
tri-board meeting?
Yes, one of the items that we talked about, similar to what we just did with Brian and Heather on facilities and maintenance, we talked about beginning that process of bringing the Board of Selectmen, along with the school committee and ourselves, the finance committee, together for a tri-board meeting, perhaps in advance of Bill beginning to crunch numbers in the September-October timeframe to talk about an outlook and what we might want. I mean, there's a number of things I think even we talked about tonight that we could work to create an agenda, and I'm happy to work with the other chairs and Bud and Bill on pulling such a meeting together if we're open to that. I think the committee is, so how best to do that, but I'll work with you on that. Okay? Excellent. But thanks again for everybody for being with us tonight. Thank you to the committee. And with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourned.
Thank you. Motion by Nancy, second by Kevin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, and have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.